The world you may be. The markets, stocks, bonds, energy, they're all navigating the latest headlines. And to stay ahead, we're watching the semiconductor space. The Wall Street Journal reporting the Trump administration wants to revoke waivers that allow, right now, global chip makers to ship American-made equipment to China. In other words, make them not be able to do that. One name that has rallied in the last 3 months, NVIDIA. That stock up more than 20%. And your next guest breaking down the technicals of that and more. Katie Stockton is the founder and managing partner of Fairlead Strategies. She's going to be joining us, I'm told, in just a moment, Contessa Brewer, because we're going to look at the semiconductor stocks and what they call the market navigator segment. We're going to do what? Navigate the markets.
But you know what's interesting? When we have heard, and you had just brought this up earlier in the show, Brian, that NVIDIA may be a great investment if you're not planning to hold it over a long period of time. But what happens in the short term when we're looking at the short term?
Well, listen, we're going to find out. Katie's going to be joining us momentarily, and we're going to look at the technicals of NVIDIA, semiconductor stocks, and more. But it's a good point. My only point about gold was I wasn't knocking NVIDIA. I wasn't knocking the stock market at all. But you know what? I made my point earlier, and Katie Stockton's good to go now, so we're just going to go to her. Katie Stockton joining us now. Fairlead Strategies joining us. Apparently, yellow is the color of summer. Contessa Brewer just said that. Katie, good to have you on right now. How do the charts look for NVIDIA?
You know, we've seen a really massive relief rally off that April low, almost 70% upside. So you can imagine after that kind of gain, NVIDIA does look overextended. And we haven't been terribly worried about the stock until very recently, when we saw some signs of short-term and also intermediate-term now upside exhaustion. That's based on our DeMark indicators. And we have a couple of charts that we brought with us. On the daily chart of the NVIDIA, you'll see there's a counter-trend signal denoted by an arrow. And it's coming not terribly far from resistance, which is pretty strong, right around 150. And then if you zoom out to the weekly chart, you'll see also that as of this week, we have a weekly signal of the same kind. And we haven't seen these signals since the peak back in late 2024. So I do think there's risk here of a retracement, and that, you know, some investors might think about reducing exposure with that in mind.
What's fascinating?
Despite widespread worries about industry headwinds, Morgan Stanley maintained its top selection, describing NVIDIA as a unique opportunity in the semiconductor space and reiterating its overweight rating. "We continue to regard this as a special opportunity," Morgan Stanley analysts stated in a note. While there is still a lot of concern, almost universal, that things will slow down, the world's largest market cap semiconductor manufacturer is arguing forcefully that things will pick up speed from here. The latest NVIDIA findings were impressive in a number of ways. The analysts predicted high gross margins, robust ex-Chinese revenues, networking recovery, and encouraging remarks regarding the supply chain ramp on racks. Morgan Stanley attributed this constraint to geopolitical sensitivities around China, even though there was little forward guidance for the second half of 2024 or the calendar year 2026. The analyst stated, "We continue to believe that we are materially under-shipping demand. It is anticipated that a major short-term issue, that rack bottlenecks are causing original design manufacturers, ODMs, inventory to increase, will soon be resolved. As rack constraints are removed and demand increases, the inventory that is building up at the ODMs will shortly be replaced with a limited number of those Bianca cards." As part of a weekly evaluation of semiconductor names, Morgan Stanley has maintained its belief in NVIDIA. The business also likes Marvel a bit more given the sell-off and expects good numbers from Broadcom this week. Don't forget to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your input helps create a more knowledgeable community where we can all learn and grow together in the world of investing. Stay up to date with the latest market trends, insights, and key updates by subscribing to Investing Tutorial. We're here to help you make smarter investment decisions and stay ahead of the curve.
Because you've got two things here. You've got investors and you have traders. And Katie, you know better than anybody, they're very different things, right? Investors, you buy for the long-term, months, quarters, years, decades, whatever it is. Traders, they could trade every minute, every second, every day to see what things are. And guys, we can bring that chart back up. What's fascinating about NVIDIA, Katie, is that for all the attention it gets, I mean, we talk about it all the time, the stock has not made investors, longer-term buyers, any money in about a year.
That's right. So we've seen the stock move from a cyclical uptrend into a long-term trading range. You can see that in the kind of flat slope of the 200-day moving average, which, by the way, is about 11% below current levels. It's not a major support level. The major support defining the bottom boundary of the range is closer to 100. So it's a pretty wide range. And within that range, traders actually probably should welcome the possibility for more volatility, because for those that bought in April, they're up nearly 70%, right? So I think traders, it's actually a better environment in NVIDIA for them as long as this trading range is intact. And as you'd guess, the trading range does reflect a loss of long-term upside momentum to suggest that the broader market might be challenged for the balance of the year.
Well, broader market might be challenged. Maybe a DeMark indicator, short-term top on NVIDIA. Settle.
NVIDIA may be the most watched stock in the market, as it's a harbinger for artificial intelligence, AI build-out development. Most of NVIDIA's revenue comes from graphics processing units, GPUs, installed in data centers to perform AI workloads. Investors can presume that AI investments are advancing rapidly as long as NVIDIA keeps releasing strong outcomes. The first quarter fiscal year 2026 numbers that NVIDIA recently released, which concluded on April 28th, were outstanding. Investors need to watch a couple things, though. Is the stock still a good investment today, despite significant headwinds emerging? NVIDIA has a market share of over 90% in the data center GPU industry because its GPUs and the software that supports them are the best available. Its dominance is unprecedented in the hardware industry, which is good news for investors. NVIDIA is also growing at a rate never seen for a company of its size. In Q1, its revenue increased 69% year over year to $44 billion. However, this pace is expected to slow a little next quarter, with revenue projected to be about $45 billion, indicating 50% revenue growth. The reason for this slowing growth is related to U.S. government export restrictions. On April 9th, NVIDIA received notice that it was unable to sell its H20 chips, designed specifically to meet the requirements of previous U.S. export restrictions, without a license, thereby stopping the sale of these chips. As a result, NVIDIA failed to generate $2.5 billion in revenue in the first quarter and had to charge $4.5 billion for excess inventory. NVIDIA sold over $4.6 billion worth of H20 processors prior to the restrictions. Additionally, they estimated that H20 chip sales in Q2 would total about $8 billion. Accordingly, NVIDIA's Q2 growth would have been over $53 billion, representing a 77% increase. NVIDIA's growth rate would have been 79% if the $2.5 billion in sales that was lost in Q1 had been recovered. For comparison, NVIDIA grew by 78% in Q4, showing that its customers are still spending a lot of money on GPUs and that the growth rate isn't really slowing down. Since government export limitations are the only thing preventing NVIDIA from growing this quarter and the following, this is a very bullish indication. The market responded favorably to the news and drove NVIDIA's stock up when the company announced its earnings, even if investors didn't witness the huge boost they're used to seeing with NVIDIA. Does this, however, make it worthwhile to purchase this stock? NVIDIA's trailing 12-month profits per share, EPS metric, will be somewhat off due to the one-time charges associated with writing off the H20 inventory. This effectively renders the trailing price-to-earnings, PE ratio, useless for the upcoming year. Rather, I'll value the stock using NVIDIA's projected PE. At 33 times forecast earnings, NVIDIA isn't the cheapest stock on the market, but few stocks are expanding as quickly and steadily as NVIDIA. NVIDIA's core business remains intact and is performing exceptionally well in spite of the obstacles posed by the U.S. government. The demand for GPUs is still high and isn't expected to decline. I continue to believe that NVIDIA is a good investment here, and since AI tailwinds are still strongly favoring NVIDIA, investors should plan to hang on to their shares for 3 to 5 years. So, what implications does this have for NVIDIA's stock? Let's explore that. But first, a big thank you to those of you who've stuck with us this far. Creating these videos takes significant effort and dedication, so if you're enjoying the content, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts on NVIDIA stock in the comments. Your support truly helps us grow. Now, let's get back to the video.
And I'm just reading through some of the comments that are coming across right now, specifically about the China market, which, of course, is a big part of NVIDIA's quarter here. The CFO saying the company is still evaluating limited options to serve the Chinese market, and losing access to the Chinese market would have material adverse impact on NVIDIA's business. How should we view, if the export controls remain in place, how should we view the China market and what it will be to NVIDIA in a couple of years?
Yeah, so I think the big revelation about Q2 is that they were planning on shipping 8 billion, probably almost twice as much as we were anticipating they would actually ship into China in the second quarter. So this was turning out to be a very large blockbuster product for them. It is unclear at this point exactly how they're going to sidestep the restrictions and exactly how powerful and how valuable this will be to Chinese customers. So it is a TBD.
So how do you put that TBD in your model? I mean, you could put TBD in there, but it won't calculate anything. So how do you view that? I mean, once the chips are throttled to a certain extent, they're just not competitive anymore. I mean, the market really diminishes pretty quickly from there. So how do you view that? And how do you view NVIDIA's presence in the Chinese market in even 2 years, given that they've lost so much market share in just 4 years without even the strictest of the export controls that we're seeing now?
Yeah, Melissa, you got all the moving parts right. In terms of my model, it's not going in it until there's some sort of clarification here. And interestingly, Jensen on the call called out Trump's restrictions here and controls and saying they are counterproductive. So it was interesting to see him actually vocalize his objections.
Chris, it's Karen. Thanks for being on. Do you think that was theatrics? He's playing just to the president?
I think he is angry. And I also do believe he thinks it's counterproductive. And he's worried that other platforms like Huawei, for example, are going to capture that market in the race for AI. So I do believe he's angry and probably with justification.
Huang noted that the three main parts of enterprise information technology are networking, storage, and computation. These elements are essential for enterprise AI as well. All of them have been combined by NVIDIA. Because of its enterprise AI leadership, I anticipate that the firm will enjoy excellent sales and earnings growth, which will increase its market capitalization. Fourth, industrial artificial intelligence. The final AI megatrend Huang mentioned was industrial AI. It is the use of AI to increase productivity and efficiency in industrial processes. According to Huang, there will be an AI factory next to every manufacturing facility in the world today. According to him, these artificial intelligence factories will develop and run AI for the actual plant, in addition to powering its output. Robots in the factories are another aspect of his idea. Manufacturers are already using NVIDIA's Omniverse product to create digital twins and 3D models of actual facilities. Additionally, they can train and test factory robots and driverless cars using Omniverse. Is Huang correct when he says, there will be AI factories in every factory? Perhaps not, but I have a feeling a lot of factories will. Additionally, I think that over the next 10 years, industrial AI will play a major role in propelling NVIDIA to a $5 trillion market valuation. There is potential for hundreds of enterprises to gain a share of the $15.7 trillion global market for artificial intelligence by 2030, according to PwC analysts. But NVIDIA has benefited more directly than any other company from the development of AI. Additionally, Stephen Mandel and Stanley Druckenmiller, two stock billionaires, were fired. In the June-end quarter of 2023, Duquesne Family Office had 9,750 shares of NVIDIA, which was accounted for by the company's 10-for-1 forward split in June 2024. As of the end of June 2023, Lone Pine Capital owned 6,416,490 shares of NVIDIA. However, both billionaires would supervise the full divestment of their respective funds' NVIDIA holdings over the next 12 months for Mandel and 15 months for Druckenmiller. To stay informed about the latest developments from NVIDIA and the ever-changing stock market, consider subscribing to our investing tutorial channel. We provide daily updates on significant market shifts and key catalysts, so hit that subscribe button to ensure you never miss crucial information. We'd love to hear your thoughts on NVIDIA stock, so please share your opinions in the comments below. Now, let's dive into today's video.